For one, I know that you're a bit of a ghostwriter.
Yes.
And I like to consider myself an author. I've had a couple things published in a couple small magazines, but I've got my little project of the nonfiction novel, which with anywhere from 3 to 8 years will finally be finished and come out. But tell me a little bit about like being a ghostwriter. Like, how'd you get into it? And yeah, just give me all the dirt.
Yeah, the ghostwriting thing is a crazy story. Like, I've always loved telling stories. I've always been a storyteller, and I believe our stories define our lives, right? The stories we tell are the lives that we live, right? So, but many years ago, well, I've loved to read my whole life, and I've often sent letters to the authors even before the internet, which dates me a little bit. Not before the internet, but before like the social media craze, right?
Yeah.
But I would send them letters, and they would respond to me. I would say, I like this book. This is what I liked about your book. Thank you for writing it. And I became kind of pen pals with some of these people who have become great authors. And a couple of them came to me at one point when I was a corporate exec, and they're like, "Hey, you want to read a book before it comes out?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'd love to." Right. And I read these books, and I just felt like I could help make them better. And so I reached out to both of them and asked if they were open to feedback. And they both said yes. So I basically rewrote their books or parts of their books, and they both loved it. And they both ended up, one hired me or paid me for that job, and the other one hired me for his next job. And it's just been word of mouth since then. So went full time doing it in 2016. And yeah.
I imagine that has to be word of mouth. That's not like a career. It's not a job you see on a job board somewhere. It's like you have to have like a really trusted referral if someone's going to write your memoir or something for you.
Yeah. So there are a number of people out there that advertise their ghostwriting skills. For me, most of my clientele is like celebrities or the ultra wealthy or professional athletes that have heard it from a friend, right? And so, for me, the marketing hasn't been that big on the ghostwriting side. It's been pretty cool and pretty rewarding to be able to just like be introduced to amazing people that are the top in their field and want to write a topic, and I have to go in and learn it, not just well enough that I can understand it, but well enough that I can write about it, which I feel has given me a unique perspective over the years, for sure.
So is it public that you write the books? Do you do NDAs? Are you secret ghostwriter?
Almost everything is under NDA. And whenever it's an interesting space because some people don't require it, but most of them really want to be seen as the one that was the author. So much so that even if I put in a clause that says I can use it in my portfolio, they'll redline that out before we sign the contract. And so it's been an interesting space to see my work be made into movies or other things that people love, and to quote myself using someone else's name. It's really been a fascinating life, but it's kind of a life that I built by design. I always when I was really young, I remember thinking I want to make lots of money and I want to have no fame, because both of those things gave me freedom.
And best freedom, of both worlds.
Freedom was what I was after. And you can't really craft a better life for that than being a ghost, right? But it's been an interesting transition over the last few years. One of the reasons that I'm allowing myself to be on podcasts now is because I've really felt called to come out from behind that wizard curtain, if you will, and let myself be seen. So.
Now the great Oz has unveiled himself. Do you think you'll start to write things under your own name? Have you penned things before that are like true to you?
So I don't have a book yet that's authored like with my name on the cover. That is something that I do want to do. It's an interesting dilemma though, because I keep writing books and putting all my life energy, if you will, into these other books. And, so my books just keep getting pushed to the background for that. And every time I'm like, well, I'm going to slow down a little bit, I'll have someone else come in and they're like, I just won the World Series. I want to write a book on mental health for kids. I'm like, how can I not help with that?
Of course. You got to do the good work. Interesting. I have been kind of torn with the advancement of AI, and I've been working on some nonfiction stuff for fun for myself. And, the editing ability that AI gives you And then once in a while, maybe it'll ask you, would you like me to polish it, kind of thing. And, how far is too far, I wonder. And what are your feelings on kind of like work that's written by AI? And are you a purist? Will you use it at all for editing?
I love this question. I believe that we should use the tools that we have
Yeah.
to make things better. AI is an interesting one because for the first time, we're creating something that is, in a sense, thinking for itself and able to act for itself. It's got the AI agents is the biggest thing that we're talking about right now. There are definitely tools out there that help write better in certain ways. What's interesting about it is that it's not perfect and doesn't know your story, and it often will repeat itself. If you can write a really good chapter with an AI tool, but you start to get into like a 300-page book and it starts to become boring and repetitive, and it says the same stories. It hallucinates sometimes and creates stories that weren't there. I believe all that's going to continue to get better. The impact that I've seen it have most relevant to me, I still have people coming to me all the time for books, but they assume that I'm going to be using AI, which will make it easier in some way, right? And there are things that it does do that help make it easier. Sometimes it'll, like I use, for decades, I've kind of kept all my quotes that I really like in spreadsheets. And now it can just pull a dozen quotes on a given topic, right? So it can help me find things and analyze things. But for me, one of my favorite things about authoring is standing on the shoulders of giants. So taking what other authors have said and bringing people up to speed on those and then building something new. And one of the places that AI struggles with that is that it doesn't actually have access to the books. And so if you're like, give me a summary of this book, all it's doing is going out and collecting the other summaries that it finds online and making its own kind of analysis of it. So it's not really like, you can't really have a deep dive with AI on a given book because it doesn't have access to the book, right? Which is something I don't think most people understand. But we basically have these tools that we want to be brilliant, but we're only allowing them access to stuff for 2-year-olds, right? Like, and it's like, it's going to be an interesting world as we move into a space where AI can do many of our jobs, but it's not being fed the way to be the best human. So we're having it turn out like flawed humans, right?
Interesting take on just how it creates that amalgamation based on the sources that it gets. And, it creates a summary of other summaries, right? And until literature is open source in a way that like all the digital versions of the books are out there, because it can, LLMs can pull from Wikipedia, but they can't read a book necessarily, certainly not like a paper version. But if that digital version is out there, I wonder if, the LLMs are advancing so quickly, can they use like Audible? Like, is the code to a point where the LLMs can listen? You know what I mean? Like, are those transcripts there?
I only know enough about AI to be dangerous, not to be good. So I don't want to be quoted on anything on here, but most large language models work in the premise that they are looking for what is the statistical best word to come next, right? And it goes word by word.
Next.
And we start to feel like it's alive, but in a lot of ways it's just an algorithm, right? But then we can argue that maybe we're just that too, right? We're just sparks of energy that are having thoughts. So I do think that AI in general is going to challenge what we believe life is. It's going to challenge our own definition of meaning and purpose for ourselves. When we have time, what do we do with it? When AI can do our jobs, what do we do, right? I think we're in a dangerous position right now of trying to figure out where do humans fit in a world with an intelligence that is smarter, that can work faster, that doesn't need breaks, that it'll be an interesting space. But as far as how the models work, I'm not the inside guy on all that, but I do think that I think it's the wrong perception to think that AI won't be able to do it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I feel
So,
the same.
so people are like, well, it'll never be able to be creative like me, or it'll never be able to do this like me, or it won't know my life. That's not true, right? Like Facebook can predict better if you're going to get divorced than you can, right?
Yeah.
Even with just your few little posts that you make. So
Yeah, Meta
there's
knows.
a lot of stuff that AI can figure out that we just don't even have a clue on. So
We're certainly on the cusp of something big. It's hard to not live in the fear world, right? I know I become a little bit apathetic, even in terms of like writing and thinking. It's a fine line of that content creation. You know, when you're using tools like a thesaurus, say, and like, I need a different version of this word that sounds better this way. And then depends if you're writing an email or a summary or writing a chapter for a book, and all of a sudden like it plugs in a few words, and how much of that is still your own. And we're going to get to a point where, you know, how much of that influence is even your own anymore. It kind of gets into a deep philosophical question
and
of
we,
like, where do our thoughts come from,
right.
right?
We went from this idea of Google, where you could Google something and you would get 10 results and you would feel like you were doing research. But even then, those 10 results, or that every page of results, were filtered for what it thought would be most useful for you.
Yeah.
So you were already in an echo chamber. And now we have an echo chamber that is giving you one response. And so especially the younger generation and others will pull up a response and be like, oh, this must be the truth. Here's my oracle. Here's my, in essence, it's kind of a God that gives you an answer. You're like, here's what's happening with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
What should I do in this situation? And you get one response, and it's like, okay, well, it knows, right? But some of the things that I found interesting, for example, you know, I wrote a chapter for a book, or just a short story for a book, and then I took that and I put it into a couple of the AIs and I said, help me make this better. Right. And it gave me a number of recommendations and suggestions. And I went through and I'm like, that's a good recommendation. That's a good one. And I ended up implementing almost everything it said. And then I went to my son, who's also a writer. He's 16. He's about to finish his first horror thriller novel.
Great.
And, well, he did finish it, but he wants to go back and rewrite it because he feels like he's learned so much in the writing. So,
Of course, yeah.
So he's working on it. But I gave him the 2 chapters and I said, hey, read these 2 chapters and these 2 versions, let me know what you think. And he came back and he had the one that I had written. He said, this one just feels more connected to the character, right? And he's like, it feels more human. And so he was able to like sense that, even though it wasn't, I hadn't gone in and said, AI, write this. I said, AI, help me like just tweak what I'd written, right? It wasn't AI written. For me, like AI written is still so much that you can just read it and you're like, I know, I mean, it's just clear to me. But I think it will get better. It will continue to get better. We can't even imagine what's coming. So that'll be an interesting space for sure.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
I know that Peter Diamandis, who I really admire, has an X Prize now called the Future Vision X Prize.
I haven't heard of it.
And what he's trying to do is have people create story that the future will then be modeled after. So the premise is Star Trek is the source of a lot of our tech, right? Cell phones and things came from and the tricorder and all these different medical things, all these different ways to communicate. Star Trek kind of put the premise of them saying this is scientifically possible.
Yeah.
And what he's trying to do is say, I want you to create a vision of a beautiful world with AI that then maybe people will start to model our path towards that, right?
Yeah.
Because it is really easy to go, wow, we're going to have individuals making $1 trillion, and by displacing all of their employees.
Yeah.
Right. That's like, that just seems like,
it's a beautiful vision. I look forward to seeing what comes out of it. I try to be as hopeful as possible, and that utopia is awaiting us. But, so often the doom scroll negative feed, it looks like dystopia is approaching faster than ever. And with the advent of technology and how things are just accelerating constantly, I know my escape is always just like nature, spending time outdoors and breath work and moving and trying to get myself into states of flow. And what do you like to do to try and get into flow states?
I love that. For me, like, I love nature as well, and I can get in flow in nature. One of the reasons I feel like I can do that in nature is because, and this is a little controversy still, but I believe plants are more intelligent than we give them credit for.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we love about being in nature is we love to be seen, we love to be witnessed. And there's nothing that does that better on this planet than plants. And to stand among the trees, you literally feel witnessed by the forest, by the trees, right? So I love nature for flow. I love sports like pickleball. I love playing pickleball. I know that's the old man sport or whatever, but hey. I love writing for sure. Writing is a great way to do it. Music to me is a passion where I can move into that space. There are just certain things and activities you can do that move you into this space of feeling in flow and losing that time or having time stand still or time speed up and flow. Like one of the authors I do a lot of work with is Stephen Kotler, who is in essence like the world's leading expert on flow right now since Csikszentmihalyi died, right? And he's done a lot of amazing stuff, and it's been really a pleasure to work with him on some of his things as well.
Yeah, I know the name. I'm not too familiar with his work. He's got a famous book?
He wrote like Stealing Fire.
Stealing Fire, that's right.
Rise of Superman, The Art of Impossible.
He's done a lot of work with Jamie Wheel, I believe, and the Flow Genome Project, actually.
Yeah, he had his own, and they both had their own little processes that they did, but they came together for a great book. Yeah.
I'd love to bring you back to kind of communing with nature. And I've always, believed that plants are alive, even as a child, before some of the more, futuristic, heady sciences kind of come out of how, microbial networks underneath the soil, how trees communicate with each other and share resources. And one of my favorite little facts is the acacia tree, in the African savanna, that when it's being eaten by like a giraffe will start to release a specific pheromone that flies through the air, and then the other trees will pick up on it and release that same pheromone, which makes the leaves unappetizing to the giraffes. And so they signal each other. They kind of speak through this wild, like sixth sense almost. I was just speaking with a master naturalist in the state of Maine, and she is a certified forest therapy guide. So Shinrin Yoku, if you're familiar with that, the forest bathing, the Japanese technique that like time spent in nature is like preventative medicine. And one of the things she had shared with me is that one of her beliefs is that we have our five senses, and that a sixth sense, as she coined the phrase, is earth dreaming. And that the earth dreams, and you can tune into those dreams if you're able to like listen to the forest in a way that you're not using your like traditional five senses. And it's very magical and woo woo, but I kind of believe everything these days. You know, it's like
believe everything and believe nothing all the same time.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, how do you define your own truth? It's like, what story are you going to believe? And with the age of information, we're getting constantly inundated with so much, and what you determine to believe.
I think we've moved to the age of misinformation.
Oh yes, yeah, it's wild.
Which is scary in its own way, because like I believe, especially large-scale civilizations are built on these shared myths, as Yuval Harari calls them, right? And when we can't believe anything we see on social media. What do we do, right? Like half the comments on the Artemis 2 mission to the moon and back are fake news, AI. It's
we didn't go.
It's like, unless you can prove it to me, I'm like, how are they going to prove to you that they went around the moon unless you're like in the spaceship? And even then, it's like they could fake it on the windows, right? Like it's like
absolutely. You could have been drugged or any of those things. Yeah, it really comes even closer and closer to home, I think, with like family and friends and trust. I think like truth and trust are really tightly interwoven in how you determine like what is fact for you and what's not. I kind of come back to this age and this time with the amount of information we're given all the time, and how I feel like our brains can't adapt fast enough. You look back 100 years ago, say a few generations, and the amount of information that like our great grandfathers would receive in a day is what we might get in 10 minutes kind of thing. But then if you go back 1,000 years, the amount of information we consume in a day is what that ancestral great grandfather maybe wouldn't get for an entire year,
or a lifetime.
or
I
a
mean,
lifetime. They might have
what
one
what
book.
change? What's going to change in your lifetime?
Maybe
Right?
they
Yeah.
would have like a Bible, and they live in a community where there'd only be 100 people around, and it's like the information they would receive would be digested in a different manner, right? Because they would probably be a lot more in tune to their natural environmental cues that they're getting, whether it's the wind or the birds
They
or
had
the
enough
grass
time
and the sights
to
and
look at the stars and come up with constellations and like
Yeah.
everything else like that, right? Like they had
Yeah.
time to ponder those things.
I mean, arguably more intelligent than us.
And yeah, in some ways for sure. And I don't think we're the first advanced civilization here for sure. But even when I was young, like when I was a teenager, we had a set of encyclopedias by the dinner table. And when we would come up with a question that we didn't have an answer to, we would all go to the encyclopedias and we'd pull the different letter to look up different things that we might potentially find out the facts from, right? Or the truth. And the encyclopedia set was even a decade old from when we were doing this. Like in the mid 80s, we had a set of encyclopedias from the mid 70s, right?
Yeah.
But that was the knowledge source, right? And that's what we went to. And like, or you could go down to the library and look at the card catalog, right? And so now it just all comes like through your phone, and it's hard to know what's true. There was a while back, there was this clip that went really big on self-development that was this about how eagles pull out their claws and their beak, and like they can live an extra 20 or 30 years if they do this, right? It's not true, right?
Oh, interesting.
And I went to ChatGPT and I was like, help me find some, because I want to let some people know that they're sending out stuff that's not accurate. So I'm like, help me find what is accurate. And it came back and said it was accurate. And it could not find it took me like almost 15 minutes to find an actual site that worked with birds that had the right details, because that had been so populated across the internet that everywhere it was finding. It's like, oh, I found it here and here and here and here, so it must be true. Right.
That's that amalgamation again.
So,
AI thinks that because it gets a higher percentage of this is factual story, that like that's what it's going to tell you. Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's like the benchmark of knowledge, if you go through public schooling or something, and how that's going to change. It's like the goalpost is always shifting for knowledge and education and truth. And it kind of makes you a little uncomfortable.
When the internet came out, they said it started a trend towards the value of information going towards zero. And that's become true. Like you don't need a real estate agent anymore to go out and find a property. Like all of these things where if information was what you needed, the internet started to become a source for that at little or no cost. With AI, it is now knowledge, the value of knowledge that's trending towards zero, which is an interesting space to be in, especially for those of us that have built a life in having knowledge, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah. I mean, the old school paradigm of how you learn, certainly in public schools, that it's like you're force-fed information and then you're graded based on how well you can regurgitate that information. And now, a 10-year-old certainly smart enough to know that, like, why do I have to learn this if I can just Google it instantly? And generations from now will look back and wonder, like, how did we even live that way with books? How archaic.
Yeah. Will we even have a written language, right? You just don't know. And we were raised in a school system that still to this day is based off of the idea of the industrial age, where you needed to be a good worker bee. And so you have a classroom with one teacher and a bunch of students that listen and follow instructions, right? And that need has shifted, but the schooling system hasn't shifted. So
yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy behind that and the way the modern public schooling was kind of created. Don't have to go down too many dark rabbit holes about said Rockefellers kind of thing. But,
well, I mean, conspiracies aside, you can see the patterns in there, right? Like the school system is definitely built up to build employees, not the ones that are building the companies, right? So, but
it's smart dogs easier to train.
Yeah.
I love that saying.
When I got my MBA quite a while ago now, I guess it's a couple decades ago, which, wow, that makes me feel old. But but I remember we would always have these successful entrepreneurs come in to speak, and every one of them, almost to a fault, was like, schooling wasn't for me, but this is what I did, and I'm glad you guys are all in school.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, okay then.
It's a classic, like the after school PSA, like stay in school, kids.
Yep.
You know, I can't imagine my children will even go to school, or what school will possibly be like in 20 years ish. Will universities even exist anymore?
Yeah, I don't think they will in the way they do now, for sure, right? Because
not sustainable.
you know, our grandparents spent their entire lifetimes working one job. Our parents spent, you know, their lifetime working 4 or 5 jobs, and now people are switching jobs every 4 years, and that's only going to accelerate. And when it takes 4 years to get a degree, when the world has already shifted beyond what you can learn there, it becomes impossible to want that. I think we're in the first generation of seeing the wealthy stop sending their kids to school, right? In America, it was always like, it was a pride to say I'm a first generation college student, and like, you know, to get into that home, to get into all those things, and the world is shifting, right? Like it's like, own real estate to rent. Don't go and get your schooling, just work with the right people, get the right mentors. It's who you know, or who knows you, actually, right? And I often say now it's not just who knows you, but it's what AI knows you. And that's one of the reasons I still tell people, like, we're still in a window where it makes sense to write your book, to get out your intellectual property. We don't know what's going to happen with IP.
Yeah.
But if you can get it out now, before that shift, then maybe you'll have some value with that IP moving forward, and how it's used and referenced by AI. And it will also put you on the map when AI is looking for what you provide.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. It's good insight and good inspiration for me to light the fire and
Get it done.
start hacking away at the keys a little bit more. You said that you try and do something new every year, and that you kind of embrace the the comfortability of discomfort. And tell me a little bit about that kind of
Yeah, absolutely.
irony there. Stokes Picks are the world's first organically flavored nicotine toothpicks, produced in the great state of Maine from American white birch wood, which is sustainably harvested and grown in the great state of Maine. They have incredible flavors: vanilla mint, lemon ginger, cinnamon clove, and absinthe. And if you enter the promo code Enter the Unknown, you'll receive 20% off your order at stokespicks.com.
I feel it's easy for us to get stuck in what we're doing, and we'll wake up today and do the same things we did yesterday, which means we'll have the same outcome we did yesterday. And it is hard for us to step into things that feel uncomfortable. But when we do, that's where we make the breakthroughs, when we get outside of that space of being in the same flow, right? We say most of our operating system was built when we were between 7 and 10 years old, right? And so we're basically letting our lives be driven by our 7-year-old selves, unless we push ourselves outside of that comfort zone. And one of the ways I like to do that is I like to intentionally find activities or things that I put in for that year and say, I'm going to become good at this, or I'm going to learn to do this, something that makes me very uncomfortable. So every time I step into it, I'm familiarizing myself with being uncomfortable is okay, right? We have all of these patterns that we run. One pattern that I know that I ran for much of my life was, and no fault of my parents, or I think my parents were fantastic, but it was like, if you want to make money, you've got to do something that sucks, right?
Yeah.
And to shift that to like, I can make money doing stuff that I love, just as easily, right? That's a paradigm shift, or the way we shift seeing the world. And I think that what we make familiar is also in that space, right? If something is unfamiliar, then you don't really want to do the unfamiliar, and you don't want to do the uncomfortable. But if you can move into those spaces of making the uncomfortable familiar, making it comfortable, then that's when you can make real change. What often ends up happening, though, is that familiar discomfort becomes comfort, right? So if we are living a life that we don't want, and we want to change it and we can't, we need to look at, well, maybe it's because we're comfortable in that discomfort. And so we need to be able to shift and get uncomfortable in order to be able to move to the life we want. You know, Joe Dispenza says this, Brandon Weiss, a lot of them say it's impossible to predict a future that you don't know. So like Joe Dispenza, I love how he talks about what he calls quantum surprises.
Yeah.
Which is this idea that you can set intentions, but you can't set what's going to happen. Otherwise, you're only going to create what you have already known, right? And so I love to live my life looking for quantum surprises, to step into that discomfort, even though it's uncomfortable. I had a partner once that would say, there's beauty in destruction. And I just still cringe a little bit at that concept, but the concept behind it is solid. You know, for everything, all life requires death, and all death brings life. And you can't only add, you have to also subtract. And there's a great clip out there with this, we have an additive bias. And so there's this group that are given this thing made of Legos, and it has one leg on it, and so it's uneven. And they say, make this even so it balances, right? And most people will add a leg. So they add something instead of taking away the leg and putting the base on the table, which would make it even more stable, right?
Yeah.
But it's this idea that we have to add, right? Instead of
build upon.
Instead of subtract. And often subtraction is a key to just like such a better space.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting thought processes there. Thinking about, you don't know what you don't know. And what I thought you were going to say about Peter Diamandis, and was it the X Project?
X Prize, yeah.
X Prize, thank you. Is that, and I heard this recently, imagine trying to create or even just draw a picture of something you've never seen before, or something that maybe has never existed. Like, try and create something out of your brain that doesn't exist or you've never seen before. It's like nearly impossible, really. It kind of drives you into madness of like, where do the thoughts come from and how can I be truly creative?
Or describe the color orange to somebody who's never seen it, right?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. Wow. That like uncomfortable reality. I know myself, I've kind of self-labeled as a masochist for a long time with kind of my extreme sports and adventure background. I love pushing into like harsh and difficult realities. And there's kind of a classic phrase in mountaineering and climbing and just suffering. And sometimes you intentionally engage in a suffer fest, and you're doing something that's incredibly difficult because you enjoy the journey and you want to get to the destination. But it's that pushing yourself into the hard things that you gain so much from and learn so much from, and really, grow as a person, as a man, as a human. I recently learned that when you do things you don't want to do, it actually grows a part of your brain. The anterior cingulate, mid-cingulate cortex grows when you do things you don't want to do. And so ever since I learned that, it was on a Huberman episode, I've kind of stuck with it. And so I could do things all the time. I'm not a masochist. I'm actually getting smarter by doing this, so whether it's going out on the lake and cutting a hole in the ice with a chainsaw and forcing myself to the cold plunge and doing the cold thing, or getting up early and getting a workout, or climbing a hard route. And oftentimes I feel that, emotional interactions with friends and family in this digital age where people are becoming less and less adept at communicating, I feel like, emotional intelligence is something that's like kind of slowly dying. And I think that those difficult conversations you have to have with people sometimes are the things that I lean into a little bit more. I appreciate the beauty in that, because that's a really uncomfortable space. And oftentimes people avoid conflict in general.
I spent most of my life avoiding conflict. I was the dinosaur in Toy Story. I don't like confrontation.
Yeah. Right? Run the other way. Run the other way.
But you really choose your hard, right? It's like, if you don't want to go to the gym, you can sit on the couch and eat potato chips, right? And your heart is going to come when you're fat and your joints hurt and things like that. Or you can choose the gym, which it's hard to get up and it's hard to get there, but you're going to feel better, right? So it's like, choose your hard. And I think that's such a valuable lesson, because so often, especially now, people are like, I just don't want it to be hard. Well, the fact is, it is hard,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's, you choose your hard.
Yeah.
And, Marissa Peer likes to say that she replaces hard with unfamiliar. And so she's like, it's not hard, it's just unfamiliar. So what can you do to shift it to be familiar? Often we have this relationship with money. This stems for a lot of people, right? They have a relationship with money where if you were to give them a lot of money, within 5 years, they wouldn't have it again because they haven't shifted what's familiar to them or how they look at it. And it's unfamiliar. And so they carry all of these weights with money, like people that have money aren't kind, or people that have money, are whatever it is, whatever their beliefs are, they end up back in what's familiar to them instead of pushing into the unfamiliar or the hard. So
Yeah, there's so many classic cliches there. Like rich people tend to be cheap, but then like poor people tend to be more generous.
yep.
I want to come back to kind of risk and people's willingness to push into that unknown and things that they're unfamiliar with and uncomfortable with. And lately, one of my bro science theories is that we are evolving into like a risk aversion society. It's like an epidemic of risk aversion in a way, where people have so much access to so much ease and comfort of life, where you don't even have to leave your couch. You can get your potato chips delivered to you from your cell phone, kind of thing. I'm a big climber, a fan of Alex Honnold, the famous free soloist, and he said something recently that really resonated with me about people don't really experience true fear anymore. Like, how often are you in a situation that is actually like dangerous? You can conjure up a multitude of things that's going to happen to you because you missed your flight, or you might crash your car, or you might get bit by a dog. But like, how likely is it that one of those things is actually going to happen to you? Like, very, very unlikely for the most part. And people tend to like build these walls around themselves and layer upon layer of like safety net and safety net. And people need to like get out there and, skin their knee a little bit more. And I think it starts with childhood, honestly. I think that all the new school gentle parenting things are for the birds. It's like kids need to fall off the monkey bars,
I do agree that when you allow kids to fall when their bones are a little bit more rubbery, that they learn how to fall.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And then when they get older, they're better able to fall, and they have less breaks in general than, if you never learn how to fall until your bones can break really easily, then you're probably going to break a bone. Right.
Yeah.
So
I saw a thing recently too. It was just a meme, but it said like, when was the last time you saw a kid in a cast? I had to think about it, and I couldn't really remember, actually. I know some like adventure sport bros who I've seen in some casts and in some hospitals, but not a child. But I remember growing up, it was like there was always a kid in the class with like the broken arm or the broken leg, and everybody would sign the cast, and it was like a process. It was a badge of honor. It happened to everybody eventually, and now we're just so coddled. I think we need to like toughen up a little bit. I wonder what's happening in the third world. Are they changing with the age information, or are they having this epidemic?
I think one of the most fascinating things of life is how different people's lives can be in different spaces, right? We still have, what is the statistic, like 750 million people that don't have access to clean drinking water, right? So the way people live is literally still all over the place. And that's one of the things I find fascinating too about looking at history, is that we find one set of bones someplace that lived a certain way, and we're like, this is how the world must have been. Right? Somebody could find like an African tribe right now and think that we had no technology if that's all they found. But yeah, so there's definitely different spaces that are different. On that same point, I think one of the best ways that we can grow as humans is to travel. So traveling and reading are two of the things that I think allow you to step out of your reality and into someone else's reality the most easily. So definitely travel to third world countries and see who uses cats.
Yeah, I appreciate that, immersing yourself in the culture. Great dichotomy of doing it in a book and like putting yourself almost within that flow state of the mind where everything else is gone. You can only focus on what you're thinking about, what you're reading, and like living the story that's written on the page, versus literally walking in the steps of like, you know, Rome and looking at the Colosseum kind of thing.
Which is amazing, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, you've been to Rome, the Colosseum.
yeah.
Great. Yeah, I'm going on my honeymoon this year, so
Oh,
I'm looking
amazing.
forward to
Yeah.
spending some time
It's
out there
fantastic.
in
Yeah.
Greece and in France. Yeah. You said, and let me try and get this right, that it was one of your quotes about. I'm drawing a blank on it now because you had two good quotes, and one was "You'll never be ready, so don't wait." And what does that mean for you?
You know, whatever it comes to, like, I have this phrase, you need to suck to soar. And that means that no one starts out being good at something, right? And we can sit there and we can take all the time we want to try and get good at something, but you don't really learn until you're like doing it. Now, like, one of the things I run into a lot is people are like, oh my gosh, I'm broken. I need to heal myself before I can have a relationship. I'm not going to do a relationship. I'm going to do years of therapy first. And there's beauty in wanting to do that. And I've tried, you know, the therapy and I've done all those things and worked with coaches and mentors and everything else. But what's interesting is that it doesn't matter how long you do that. As soon as you have the situation, it all of a sudden becomes real. And it's like you're starting at the beginning anyway, no matter how many of the tools you have. So, you know, I don't think that if you wait to be ready, it's already passed you by. There's this study, and I'm going to butcher right here because I didn't look this one up and don't remember all the details. But in essence, it was basically that those that are most successful have a smaller window between deciding to do something, between the amount of research that they do before they take action, right?
Yeah.
So if they're successful, they'll do less research and before they start taking action, right? And it's not saying that they don't ultimately do the research, but they're doing it as they're taking action rather than trying to like build all of that information up and then make the movement. And I think that's a good analogy for the you're never going to be ready. You know, you're never going to be ready for the right relationship. You're never going to be ready for it. You just need to like embrace it when it comes and do the best you can with it.
It can be a curse of intelligence sometimes, is that analysis paralysis. The more you
all
think
the
about
time,
something, the less likely it is you're going to do it, and time just drags on and drags on. And
Yep.
I remembered your quote actually that I kind of liked better, and it related a little bit to the kind of like the third world life and how other people choose to live versus how we choose to live. And just a good reminder to be grateful and feel blessed for the lives that we have, and that it's other people go to sleep crying, hoping, wishing for the lives that we have and the things that we have every day. And that's beautiful. It's a good reminder. And tell me a little bit where that came from for you.
Yeah, that quote is actually from one of Brianna Weiss's books, 101 Essays That'll Change the Way You Think. She's a brilliant author and written some incredible things. And she just goes through and just like has all of this condensed down knowledge and information that's just brilliantly put together. Now, I've said things like that over the years, but I was actually just reading that the other day when you sent me over kind of the things you wanted to talk about. Oh,
great.
And I was like, oh yeah, this one hits right now, right?
Brianna Weist.
Yeah.
Weist. And it's 101
essays that will change the way you think. Yeah.
Adding that to my to read list.
Yeah,
oh,
for
absolutely.
Sure.
Oh, that's great.
I would put that one and Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza are a couple of my
someone recommended
books,
that to me recently,
Yeah.
actually. I've listened to a lot of Joe Dispenza, but I've never read any of his work before.
Yeah. So, his books are not read by him on Audible, which is some people say is a good thing.
It's a crime. Whatever. Depends.
But
some sexy Australian lady or something reading it, right?
I really do like the voice of the author that he gets. But yeah, I could give you a list of all my favorite books. I've read a book a week for about 30 years, and I've averaged a book a week, a new book a week. And that was really good for a long time. It's kind of shifted to be, now I'm like wanting to focus on specific books. And just really dig into those. And so it's trying to figure out, do I let this record go, if you will, right? But I think often we want to hold on to stories because for some reason we feel they're serving us. And for me, one of the things that I've been trying to do, especially over the last several years, is to release the stories that are no longer serving me. And the questions I love to ask in that space are, is it true? Is it really true? And is believing it this way really serving me? Right? Because we have the ability to create whatever reality we want to create.
Absolutely.
And I think more often than not, we are more in love with the story than creating the reality that we think we want. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That narrative you build for yourself in your mind. Yeah, I absolutely, truly agree that we can manifest our own reality. And it's not that you can just sit there and wish for money all the time and money's just going to poof fall into your lap. You still have to go about your life and live your life and do what you're going to do and walk your path. But at the same time, you got to manifest what you want and not what you don't. And kind of getting stuck into those loops of hypothetical, something bad's going to happen, what's the worst case outcome, analysis paralysis,
Yeah.
rather than believing in the beauty of creation.
And it's hard because we often master the emotion of suffering. And it's very easy to get into a space of mastering the emotion of suffering because it feels comfortable. And if you expect the worst, then you're not going to be disappointed. But it's kind of ironic because if you expect the worst, then you're just disappointed all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, it's like, you know, what do you want to have? Do you want to be disappointed all the time by mastering suffering, or do you want to try and master joy? Right. And, you know, one of my favorite things when people ask me how I'm doing is I say amazing. And because it catches people off guard a lot of times. But the reality is that it's true. There are so many elements of my life that are amazing, even when there are things that are really, really not, right? Like I could focus on any one of those things, right? Where we focus, our energy flows. And it's not like I'm rejecting those parts of my life. I believe that we need to feel every emotion that comes in. But when you ask me, like, the feeling that I feel is amazing, right? Yeah. But if you want to sit down and have a deep discussion, there are absolutely things that are, that, you know, wreck me. Right. Like, and I'm not ignoring those. It's just like, what are we conditioning ourselves to feel and to believe? What are we shaming ourselves on for feeling? You know, I talk about a lot, like, one of my favorite things to do is talk about things like jealousy. And when I say jealousy, you have a lot of strong feelings about it. It's like, oh, it's a bad thing, or, oh, it means I actually love somebody, or whatever your beliefs are around it, right? But for me, I'm like, instead of judging what it is, just feel it and be like, oh, hello, jealousy. It's nice to have you here again. What brings you here? Like, why am I feeling you? And what is it that I'm seeing? And if you can allow yourself to take your emotions and listen to them, then you can actually change when and why you feel them. It's not like, oh, I don't want to feel jealousy, and you keep blocking it away. It's like, oh, I get it. I understand it. And now I can either shift with it, or I can, you know, see it differently. Right. I think seeing things differently is one of the biggest strengths that we have.
It's good to be able to change that perception. You know, words are so powerful, and our words and our thoughts absolutely shape our reality. You know, I feel like sometimes depression, as an example, is something that's way overdiagnosed in our culture. And if people had the tools to actually live in a healthy way, where they start by speaking well of themselves. And, you know, when someone has the obligatory, hey, what's up? How you doing today? Just flipping that switch and saying good instead of bad. Instead of coming up with this whole narrative, the story, your projection, right? This is the avatar's ego reflection of self, that like, oh, well, I'm having a really hard time because of X, Y, Z. When you can decide to say, you know what, the sun is shining, I have access to clean water when 750 million people don't. I'm doing pretty good, all things considered. You know, we haven't had the next pandemic. There's not an asteroid. There's no aliens.
Right.
World War III hasn't happened yet. You know what? I think I might like go get a burger or something. You know, I really appreciate that. I wish more people could do that. You know, I think that.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Just that we are in a slow downward spiral with our culture, certainly American culture, of like depression and negative thought patterns. And it, I think, really circles back to social media and the screen time. And everybody at this point is familiar with like doom scrolling, and it's the negative stuff that's like exciting and attractive and engaging and addictive in a way. People don't get addicted to happiness.
Yeah. And I've heard this before too, like negative things tend to happen, like they're very quick moments, right? But positive things kind of build over time.
Yeah.
Right.
Takes a while.
And, but when it comes to like depression, obviously like I've been depressed before. I felt depression. I find it hard to stay depressed when you're in action and in a movement. Right. But it is interesting that we have these minds that give us the power to feel it, like every feeling that we have is coming from our mind, right? Like, and yet we're choosing the ones that create a suffering, filled like depression. But those things are real. And I'm not like, definitely not like knocking those things. I felt all of them. I've been through all of them. I went through a really, really hard divorce, and I've been through all those things, but we have the ability to shift our mindset. And one of my favorite thoughts is that our past is determined by our present rather than our present being determined by our past. And what that means is that we only see through our current lens. We can only see in the now moment. And everything that we remember or that we think about, we're seeing our past life through our current lens. So if you want to change your past, you just have to change the lens that you're looking at it through. So your story can shift based on the way you're looking at it. It's not making up a lie. It's truly shifting the way you're looking at it, right? Which is fascinating to me. Like people will be in a relationship where they're like, I'm so in love, and then they'll break up and they'll be like, I was never in love, or they were never in love with me, or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll retell it. They'll retell the whole story of a whole relationship, right? And we tend to do that with anything. So did you have a bad childhood that made you into the villain, or did you have a bad childhood that made you into the hero, or did you have a good childhood that made it too easy to be lazy, or like you can define that however you want. Every hero and villain in every superhero movie has the same background, right? They're orphan, they like whatever it was,
Hero's
right?
Journey, classic story.
Yeah. So
Wow, I love that. Telling yourself the lie. I'm kind of fascinated similarly that the placebo is real, right? And if you can believe something is good for you, it is good for you. Like, the energetic of this cookie or something, but you have to authentically, truly believe it. Otherwise you are lying to yourself. And there's an interesting mental framework there where you have to kind of break down those layers. The clinically depressed person can't just pull themselves by the bootstraps and get out of bed and flip the switch and say, okay, I'm happy, I'm good now, because they still believe that they aren't good. And I wonder what it takes, whether it's the chemical reaction. And, I'm not a scientist, but I know that like we have a lot of hormonal influences that come from our gut, right? So it's kind of this chicken and the egg thing. It's like, was it something you ate that made you feel a certain way that then your whole body felt bad and then your mind felt bad? Or did your mind feel bad and then you thought the thing wasn't good for you? I go through that sometimes myself, where all of a sudden I'm like, do I feel sick? Was that bad Chinese food that I ate? Like, where does that come from?
There's absolute solid science behind what we eat affects the way we think and the way we feel and everything else. So, I always recommend people look at all of their levels, at their do all their blood work, do all the shift the way you're eating. But when it comes to mindset, right? Absolutely, you're right. Like you cannot, if you're telling yourself something that you believe is a lie, it's not going to help you be something different. But there are things that you can find that you do believe that will move you towards where you want to be, right? And so you just start small. Start with things that like you actually do believe, right? Like I believe if I brush my teeth that I'm going to have cleaner teeth, right? Whatever, right? Like because that will instill in you like, oh, I completed this task and that is a good thing. And now I have these teeth, and now all of a sudden I can like feel like if I get up and shower, like I'm going to be clean and I'm going to have clean teeth, and I'm going to, like, and you just start building on these little things that you can actually believe instead of trying to like put something out here that you don't believe. There's a couple really interesting thoughts on projecting our future selves. One is that when we think about ourselves and when we think about someone else, it highlights or it activates a different part of our brain. But when we think about ourselves and then we think about ourselves 5 years in the future, the part that our brain that activates is the same part that is someone else, right? So we're not actually like associating it as ourselves. And, Stephen Kotler talks a lot about that and others, but one of the ones that I love when it comes to connecting those things is Mel Robbins often talks about, she's like, instead of just thinking about where you want to be, think about the steps that you have to take now and the bridge that you're building to get to where you want to be. And then too often we think about, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. And you're like, 10 years later, you're like, why am I not a millionaire?
Right? I've been manifesting so hard.
Because you haven't connected that to your present self. Like, what does your present self do as a millionaire? Like, right? Like, act like a millionaire today if you want to be a millionaire. I know so many people that are like, Chip, I'm getting everything together. It's all coming. I'm going to come out soon with all my work. I'm going to publish it all soon. I'm going to do all these things. And you're continually keeping yourself disconnected from that future version of yourself by putting it out in the future. And, we often overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5. Right. But you just have to start taking those steps and,
It's a powerful framework. I do love some goal setting myself. I've started to get into a yearly practice. I was never like a New Year's resolution kind of guy. But my partner and she and I now have like a New Year's tradition actually, where we do kind of some goal setting together, both what we want for our relationship and our lives shared, but then individually as well. And I've started focusing like a lot more on my health in a lot of different ways. I've had a lot of serious injuries throughout my life, and I've learned a lot more just about wellness and nutrition and biohacking. And of course, I'm deep in podcast-istan of like all the bro biohackers and absorbing as much as I can all the time. But something I developed for myself is the 5 fingers of health, I like to call it. And so you have your mental health, your emotional, your spiritual, your physical, and then the 5th finger, the one that everybody likes the least, is the financial. And because the world we live in, until we have free energy and free money and no longer live in a world of debt, slavery, and fiat currency, that financial one's pretty important. And I think that people need to have a good grasp, that perception, if you will, that if they don't have the fingers balanced, they're always going to be out of work. So if you're always focused on the $1 million, you're maybe lacking a little bit in your spiritual health, or you're maybe lacking a little bit in your mental health. Likewise, if you're just going to the gym and crushing 7 days a week, you might look jacked, but you're probably missing out on something a little bit more important for the long term, whether it's spiritual or emotional.
Yeah, I love that 5-finger analogy, and some people have like a balance wheel and things like that. I tend to like push back on that just a little bit. Like, I think all those things are important, right? I also feel like trying to balance all the elements of your life can leave you like, oh my gosh, like, how am I balancing everything? And I look at balance and harmony, and I say, I would rather be in harmony, which means that my calendar is in alignment with where I'm want to be, right? And so, for example, I often hear people that have successfully accomplished a lot. They made a lot of money. They'll come back and go, oh my gosh, I wish I had focused more on my spirituality or on my family or whatever else. But the reality is, if they had, they wouldn't have succeeded the way they did and where they did. So there is an element of shifting out of what I call balance and into what I call harmony. The analogy I like to use is that if you are standing still, you're in balance. But the minute you take a step, you're out of balance. And as long as you're stepping in a direction that feels in alignment with your goals or your intentions, which is what I like to focus on, is intentions. But if you're stepping in the direction of alignment with that, then you're in harmony, right? But yeah, I love the idea of having those and saying what of these is important. And the thing that I would add to it is just like giving each of them a priority ranking, right? And then measuring yourself against that priority ranking, rather than saying, oh, here is the marker that I have as the best that somebody defined for my spirituality, for my physical, for all these things. Allowing yourself to like recreate a scale for each one, right? And but yeah, I love that, and because every time you look at your hand, that's a trigger
Yeah.
to remember
Yeah.
your life and
The
what
harmony
you're doing.
part, I
Yeah.
really appreciate the fluidity of that, because like you said, every step you take is constantly putting you out of balance and out of whack. And I've certainly gone through phases of my life where I thought I was riding a high and, you know, doing the best on so many levels and achieving success. And then I had to get knocked down. I had a couple pretty severe traumatic speed flying accidents where I broke my neck and helicopter flight for life, and was in the hospital and could have been paralyzed, could have died easily. And I remember barely walking on the beach a week later with my mother in a neck brace, and crying to her, sobbing, you know, like, my life is over. Like, I've accrued all this debt now. I can't do the sports I love to do. I can't work. And it didn't take long before I was able to look back and recognize that that was one of the best things that had actually happened to me, because I needed that ego check at that time. I was close enough to death that maybe one more step would have in fact killed me. And I needed that harmony, so to speak. You know, I love to have a nice dinner blessing every night. And one of the things that I say in the dinner blessing is, to our health, our happiness, and our harmony, because you need all of those to coincide together. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chip, that was such a fluid conversation, man. I really appreciate your time.
That was great. Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure getting to know you better.
Yeah, I look forward to the next, man. Salud.
See you, man.
Cheers.